If you make my word your home, you will indeed be my disciples. You will learn the truth, and the truth will make you free. One is physically what one eats physically. One is mentally what one consumes mentally. One is spiritually what one allows to enter by a process of osmosis spiritually. In the company of people in darkness, darkness creeps in. In exposure to messages which are incomplete, error enters in. Hence it is that it is not indifferent what one reads and what one hears, especially if one has a choice in the same. To go to certain places and to hear Sunday after Sunday messages which are incomplete and even extreme is not good for the soul, and one sees over a long period a change in that soul. One needs to be careful what one exposes one's soul to. One can have a situation of complete absence of freedom because there is complete absence of truth. The truth doesn't depend on the loudest syllable. The truth is the truth and stands on its own head. And so we go to the source. We look for where the truth lies. It lies in the documents of the Church, those that are guaranteed. The Lord goes on answering the Jews, I tell you most solemnly, everyone who commits sin is a slave. So here we have spiritual bondage, not just mental bondage. Physical bondage can also have an effect on the spiritual. The person who is addicted to a substance, his soul is also in bondage. But there are mental addictions, spiritual addictions, those that involve the invisible, but pass through the sensible, the sensible. For instance, pornography. For instance, addiction to wanting news, all that is to be known about the current state of affairs. It's a form of psychological addiction. The soul that is free doesn't need all this. That soul prefers to have the interior master, and as the Lord puts it here, to make of his word the home. And that word can only be heard when there's an absence of a plethora of other words blocking him out. One big one nowadays is an addiction to a machine carried around all the time. An inability just to not have it on, to switch off access and availability, giving availability precisely to the interior master, and retrieving that freedom which our ancestors always had on earth. We are the first generation to be in bondage to this one, if we choose to be in bondage. But there are other bondages too, affections, which are enchaining. How many people spend the best years of their life in ups and downs of amorous adventures, again blocking out the serenity which allows the interior masters to speak, for passion obscures the functioning of the reason. And so it is that to opt out of all that domain and to be free to be worked upon only by the one that made us and by his divine will is a hugely liberating process. The attitude of the Virgin herself on bended knee before the angel, behold the handmaid of the Lord. And then that capacity not to have preference, holy indifference, let it be done to me according to thy word. And the angel can take many forms in the day. It can be the language of God, which is his providence. History is his story. And the angel can be a person proposing something, or actually giving something to read. Therefore, we have the elasticity of the event. We don't block out that angel either. Nor do we block out the angel that might be next to us in conversation by talking at that person, obscuring the possibility of new truth. Only the empty vessel can be filled. We can be in bondage to our own quantity of acquired knowledge. Woe betide anyone who interferes with it. It is thus Amen. But with regard to affections, it can be even spiritual. One can have spiritual bondage. That can be of a high order, but it can be a bondage nevertheless. Until there is complete abdication on the level of the will to espouse the divine will in the slightest detail, one is still in bondage to one's own will. St. John of the Cross indicates that it might be only a tiny thread, but nevertheless, if the little bird is still attached to it, that little bird is completely unable to fly. A grace then to be asked for in Passiontide: death of the will. Upon the eagle banners fly, now shines the cross's mystery. Upon it life to death endure, and yet by death in life procure. At which the prophet King of earth hath in mysterious vows foretold, is now accomplished whilst we see God ruling nations from a tree. Blessed be whose happy branch is born, the wealth that did the world restore. The beam that in that body way, which raised up hell's expected prey. El cross upon thee we call, who keep this mournful festival. Grant to the just increase of grace, and every sinner's crimes efface. Blessed Trinity, we praise and sing, to thee from whom all grace is spring. Celestial crowns on thy